Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
What is up, Burn Nation? It is Trisha and DK back for another HQ Crew episode here on the Burn Bootcamp podcast. It is March 19th today. Trisha, how you feeling?
I'm so great. I'm excited to be here. Another great lineup of topics for us to get into, Devin.
You know what? I'm feeling pretty good right now. You know, Mesocycle number 3 is here for the year. We're getting ready. We just got back from Vegas. So it's just, a good time of the year right now. It's starting to warm up. In North Carolina, it gets pretty warm in March for everybody out there. For all my Midwestern, Northeast folks, it's getting warm here, and I know that you're a little jelly because you got a couple more months there. But we're gonna dive into a bunch of really interesting stuff today here on the podcast. And given it's the middle of March and we are going to round out quarter one here shortly, we have a lot to cover on some of the topics that we have been covering for this quarter and last. And, we've been following the whole Ozempic Wegovy track. So that's the first article we're going to talk about today. There's a very interesting thing that's happening right now. There's a trend that you see with these fads. And I'm going to explain, I think this will be really eye-opening to a lot of us. I'll just explain the cycle that these fads go through and what to look out for and kind of where we're at right now in the whole Ozempic Wegovy weight loss movement. Number 2, if you want to be successful, science says you need a hobby. Who doesn't have a hobby out there? Who's missing a little something in their life, works really hard, but has a little void? Maybe you need a hobby. Inc.com is going to educate us on just some science around needing a hobby. I know this is true because pickleball is my hobby, and it's added a lot of value to my life, even though it's a stupid game.
It's not stupid.
Well, it is a game. How about that? It's a game. It's just a game that's irrelevant. How about it's an irrelevant game, but it's not irrelevant to me.
There you go.
Because it takes my mind off of stuff. So number 3 is going to be ooh, Trisha, this is the one that you're all fired up about. Oh boy. All right, people. Does stress in babies and children cause ADHD? Ooh. We're gonna listen to somebody from the Diary of a CEO podcast, and really interesting 5 minutes, so you're in for a treat. Number 4, 5 life-changing lessons an entrepreneur learned from visiting the world's happiest country. Does anyone know what the world's happiest country is?
I do now.
Chelsea, do you know what the world's happiest country is? Did you know before?
I didn't before the article.
Do you know what it is now?
Yeah.
All right. I know now too. I actually did know this beforehand because psychology studies a lot about happiness in different countries, and I read a lot of psychology-driven books. Okay, so then number 5 is 5 artificial ingredients that you should cut out immediately because they cause anxiety, depression, and brain fog. Okay, that's a red flag article, number 5. So we got some ones that I'm ready to lean into, some ones that we're ready to hotly contest and debate today because we want to clear through the clutter out there, Burn Nation, and bring you a well-rounded kind of source of topics that's going to make your life better. With no BS, that's the goal. A lot of fun too, though, sometimes. So I've been getting a lot of DMs, Trisha. I think the podcast is picking up. People really like our little banter back and forth. You know what they told us? You know what they told me, though? They go, you and Trisha are great on camera together. You guys just need to disagree with each other more. I was like, but we would if we do.
It's true.
But we can look for little, how about this? We'll look for little spots to pull threads to make the conversation a touch more interesting. Deal?
Deal.
Okay, sounds good. But first, before we do that, we're going to hear from Meg from Bluebell. We love our transformation stories. This one's a unique one because, why do we love our transformation stories is a great question that you may be asking. Well, why? Because that's what we exist for. That's literally what this podcast is all about. In the gyms is kind of the 1-2 punch to help you maximize your quality of life, get the results you never thought you could, exceed what you thought possible. And Meg did that. Not only did she do that on the floating floor as a member, but then she became a trainer, and then she became a training manager. I love these stories of the member journey, and this is a representation of many trainers that were once members. I think Trisha even has a story very similar to that. So let's hear from Meg, Bluebell, PA.
This year marks my 6th year at Burn Boot Camp and nearly 4 years as a trainer. In that time, I've had the honor of growing from a member to a lead trainer and now training manager, a journey that has shaped me in ways I never imagined. I first walked through Burn's doors when my 3rd child was just 10 weeks old. Like so many moms, I was looking for something for myself, but I had no idea that something would be this community. I originally planned for it to be 30 days, but from day one, I knew this place was special. Fast forward to today, Burn has become more than just a gym. It's my home base, the place where I have found strength in every sense of the word. The energy, the empowerment, the incredible people I get to train each day fuel my passion to help others feel stronger inside and out. Through every season of life, Burn has been my constant, a place to reset, refocus, and keep pushing forward. And now my kids love watching me train, cheer me on, and tell their friends how strong their mom is. I am beyond grateful for this community, and I cannot wait to impact even more lives in the years ahead. If you're looking for a place to belong, a place to grow, and a place to become the strongest version of you, this is it.
Thank you so much, Meg, for sharing your story. We love our transformation stories. We love our members, and we love when our members become trainers. I have a similar story myself. You are impacting so many lives, and your story is so inspiring. So thank you, Meg, from Bluebell, Burn Boot Camp Bluebell, franchise partners. Shout out Kathy and John. And hey, if you're out there listening, we want to hear from you. Go to burnbootcamp.com/transformation, and you can also share your transformation story with us. It doesn't matter if you think it's not that, it's always important, right? No matter how big or small, we want to hear from you. So again, burnbootcamp.com/transformation and submit your story today.
All right. Well, we're going to get into the articles today. We got some good storylines. We're going to start with this Wegovy article. It says Wegovy is slashing their prices following a move by pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly. So Chelsea, tee this article up for Trisha, the audience, and I, this NBC News article. What is this about? What do we find here? I know there's a clip we're going to play here in a second as well.
Yeah, so both Novo Nordisk,
Novo Nordisk.
yes, who has Wegovy, and then you also have Zepbound with Eli Lilly. They've both cut the price of these GLP-1 drugs pretty much to make it more affordable for people to actually obtain. Originally, they were going for like $1,000 a canister to be able to use these products, and now they're cutting them almost half price. So really making them more affordable for people. Don't know if that's good or bad.
Okay. And we have an article, or we have a video clip that we want to play here too, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and roll that.
Make them even more popular.
Yeah, after consumer complaints about the cost of those drugs, the manufacturers of Wegovy and Zepbound, they've actually announced some significant price drops, and it's a move that could allow more Americans to access those drugs.
All right, NBC's chief consumer investigative correspondent Vicki Nguyen is investigating all of this. Okay, so let's talk about this. Is two of this class of drugs that are lowering prices. Tell us about that.
This is such good news for consumers, Savannah, because more competition means lower prices. So here's what's happening. Novo Nordisk, which makes Wegovy, which is a semaglutide-based weight loss medication, has announced it is slashing the prices for a monthly dose to $4.99. That's down from $13.49. So more than half off. That's major. And then this news comes just 1 week after Eli Lilly, which makes Zepbound, that's a tirzepatide weight loss medication. They said that they are reducing their prices by $50 per month and also introducing more dosage options for patients.
More dosage options as well.
Yes. So these are single vial doses. Okay. So they'll go from 2.
Okay, so what we're hearing here is there's a pattern here, and the way that this whole article positions these weight loss supplements is they're speaking to you in a way that it is trying to convince you that what is happening with these weight loss supplements right now is a good thing, and that these big pharmaceutical drug companies are being good faith citizens because they are, and good companies because they're slashing the price of drugs in half for you because they want to make it more affordable. And she said, this is good news. Well, let me give you some news, okay? This is a cycle that happens with all of these there's a whole cycle with all these fads, okay? And it really starts with a scientific breakthrough like we had with Ozempic and Wegovy, and this is the first like 1 to 3 years where it's net new. There's this honeymoon phase. Everybody's on it. It's the new thing. It's hot, right? Then it goes through this period of like mainstream popularity because the celebrities will get on it, right? And this is like year 3 to 5. We're just getting to the end of that 3 to 5 year period. The next period is where regulatory scrutiny comes into place and heavy public backlash. And I'll give some examples of this in a moment. And that's usually year 5 to 7, somewhere in there on average. And then at year 7 to 10, this is about a 10-year cycle. Then you get this like decline and you get this replacement of these different fads, okay? So these are like the stages: scientific breakthrough, mainstream popularity, regulatory scrutiny, public backlash, decline, and replacement of the actual product itself. Okay, so what happens between mainstream popularity and the public backlash regulatory scrutiny phase is the price goes down. Why? Because the demand is going down. It's not because the drug companies want to sell more drugs. $1,000 a month is expensive. The mainstream popularity is going down. It's very obvious that that's happening. I mean, you could just go look. Just go look. I'm a business guy in health and entrepreneur. I study these things. Just go look at the marketplace. The marketplace says these drugs are becoming less popular. It's faint, it's subtle because it's toward the end of this bell curve, but it's toward the end of this. Can you guys pull up a bell curve? I know everybody probably knows what a bell curve is, but just in case you're confusing like a mental image with something else, a bell curve or distribution curve is kind of a universal principle, and I'm going to show you where the Ozempic fad is, and I use fad specifically because that's what it is. I'm going to show you where it is on a bell curve, so the team will pull that up. But you're going to enter this phase of extreme public backlash, and you kind of already see that. You'll have this transition to where the price goes down. You'll get a mix of public backlash. You're already seeing celebrities come out. Amy Schumer is one that just came out and said, listen, I was on this supplement, and it is, maybe we can find an Amy Schumer clip in a little bit. She said, I was on this supplement, and here's all the terrible things that it did for me, right? And like, I lost a ton of weight and like gained it all back. And like, she basically gives her testimonial of it. And this is what is going to happen, folks. I'm not here to demonize Wegovy or Ozempic. It's not I have no fight in that game, right? You guys know that I'm a foundational person, a universal human needs based type person. Like, you need food, you need security, you need water, you need belonging, you need pursuit of self-awareness and pursuit of happiness and freedom. And, you know, most importantly, and above all, you need the ability to pursue self-actualization and become the best version of yourself. How do you do those things? Well, eating well, like controlling your energy is the answer. So eating well, working out every day, recovering well, sleeping well, all the foundational things, right? It's like eat, sleep, recover, repeat. And we get this cycle of fads where it's over and over and over. And I'm not saying fads are a bad thing. I try the fads. I just know that they're fads. Yep. And I know that they're going to go. They're not going to stay forever. The fact that human beings need to eat leafy greens, that's not going anywhere, okay? The fact that, we're pricking ourselves in the belly fat in order to feel confident is going to leave very, very soon if it doesn't have those underlying foundational things. So what you're seeing right now, show that bell curve. What you're seeing right now is mainstream popularity would be at the top of this bell curve, kind of from delta 1 to delta plus 1. You see that 15.9, and then you see the 50% range. So that 50 percentile range and the deviation left and to the right, or -1 deviation, +1 deviation, that is where the mainstream popularity occurs. And when it starts to get toward +1 deviation toward plus 2 deviation, this is where the price starts to go down. This is where scrutiny will start to happen. Watch regulatory scrutiny start to pick up in the United States over these drugs and similar drugs like it. 4 use cases probably is what's going to happen because these drugs were already pre-approved for people with diabetes. I could be wrong about that. That's just speculation. I'm not certain that will happen, but I am certain that you'll get scrutiny. How deep that scrutiny is, I don't know. But you're definitely already seeing public backlash. Because of all of that negative press, you're going to have the price go down because the demand goes down. It's a classic supply and demand issue. And then in a few short years, you're going to see Wegovy, Ozempic, these types of weight loss, GLP-1, semaglutide, or I forget the other word, I can't even say it. Should be a clue that you probably shouldn't put it in your body if you can't quite say it that well. Ephedra, hydroxycut. I think there was one called like Belviq. Do you remember that?
No, I remember hydroxycut.
Hydroxycut was one. Ephedra was one. And, all these things come and go, and there'll be a new scientific breakthrough. It won't change the underlying fundamental, foundational habits and rituals you need to build into your life. So if you've taken any of these semaglutide GLP-1s, I'm not saying you're good nor bad for that. I've tried them because I wanted to experiment with them and see what they did. I did them for 6 weeks. They didn't do much because I didn't need them because I was already doing the underlying stuff. I was, eating my 2,000 to 2,500 calories every day with 200 grams of protein. I was getting my 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I'm training every day, and I'm doing that like 85% of the time. And it did nothing nothing at all for me. Besides, I felt like a little hormonal shift into in a bad way.
Okay.
In a bad way. Like I was way more sensitive for a few weeks. So I didn't like it, and I got off it right away. And I was biased though, because I convinced myself that I wasn't going to like it going in. Yeah. But I wanted to try it because it wasn't terrible. It's not going to kill you, right? Obviously. But it's also, do you need it?
Yeah. I
don't know. Trisha, what's your take?
I mean, honestly, I'm kind of glad it's on the other side of the bell curve at this point. I mean, we've talked about this all quarter, right? And I think a lot about Ozempic and all of these different GLP-1s specifically because I know people who are on them, and I really have been like back and forth in my brain of, okay, I understand why you take it. I understand obviously why it was made for people who have diabetes. So I'm worried right now, Devin, on the position, and this is where I think Burn Bootcamp can help people, is going back to what happens when you come off of it, because you realize maybe you're yo-yoing on the GLP-1s because you take it, you lose a bunch of weight, you get off of it because it's still really expensive, $465 or whatever Novo Nordisk dropped their prices to for Wegovy, compared to it blows my mind that they're able to drop the price that much. But then to sustain that's really expensive. So you're probably going to be unless you just have unlimited resources, you're going to yo-yo. But then what does that do for you mentally when you're feeling better, to your point, like you're taking this to feel more confident because you're losing weight, but the longevity of it all isn't there, and you're not putting in the work to really understand what makes you happy. Is like really your weight shouldn't define your happiness. And I think that's what makes me sad, is how do we help people coming out of this on this decline to make sure that we're there for them to pick them up and realize it's not about you losing 10 pounds in 1 month or whatever because you took this drug. Why don't you go to the gym? And the results aren't going to be there right away. It's not instant gratification. We all know that. You have to have the patience, and it's consistency, and teaching that through people's, what Burn Bootcamp does. And I know we have a lot of members that are listening to this, and that's what our trainers preach every single day. So how can we be there for the people who might be on the other end of this, realizing that this isn't going to be the thing that makes them happy for the rest of their life? And that's, again, I think where my brain is. I just want to help people come out of it on a happier note.
Yeah, I think there's a to your point, there's like this oxymoronic idea of all this, right? It's like you need to jumpstart, and it's promoted as something like to jumpstart your weight loss, but then you don't build any underlying like fundamental habits, and then when you get off of it, it's like it didn't jumpstart you, right? It almost has to be, if I'm a doctor prescribing this, and and I'm serious about this. Like, I probably wouldn't be a doctor for this because you probably can't make a living if this is your philosophy as a doctor. But if I was administering this stuff, I would require a 6-month prerequisite in order for you to even like qualify. I would have the standards be very high to where, because what would happen is once people actually do that and it's not looked at as a jump start, it's looked at as like an edge, like a cherry on top.
Yeah.
Then what happens is you find that if you do those things for 6 months, you don't even need it
Right.
after that.
Right.
So it's a jump start, but what are you jump starting to?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the previous podcast that we've listened to,
You have the Amy Schumer one up? Sorry, Trish, to cut you off. I have a clip. I'll let Trish give her take, and then I want to pull up that Amy Schumer clip right after this. I just sent it to you, Chelsea.
I think if you're so overweight or deconditioned that you can't maybe go to the gym and you need to lose some of that weight first, like that could be an instance where you do need the jump start to then get you moving, right, and get you mobile. Like that's where I see it could be helpful. But again, I think it's to realize that this isn't just going to fix it. It is supposed to be a jump start to then get you on this lifelong plan of making sure that you're set up for success and not having to put medicine into your body.
And there's probably some people out there that have done that and done it the right way, and it's worked. And for sure, in all those cases, I'm just really trying to speak to the hearts of those people that are looking to, like, in desperation when they've tried every strategy and then they jump to this one. It's like, just come talk to us first.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's talk, like, let's get you eating well. Let's
Right.
get your natural energy balance right. And then we'll layer on something else. You know, and Amy Schumer has a great take on this. She's so funny. I love her. And she's, you know, it's kind of an open book about everything. I believe she's on Howard Stern. Correct, Chelsea?
Yeah, Howard Stern podcast.
Yeah. So just play this. You know, Amy, you know, we have a brand champion program. And if you ever want to come be a brand champion at Burn Boot Camp and start working out on demand with us, you could do. I know you're all about your journey right now, and we're going to get those underlying foundations for you. This is her take on Ozempic after kind of trying it without that underlying foundation.
Ozempic. You had a horrible experience with it, right? That's
I have this gene, GDF15, which makes you extremely prone to nausea, which is why I was so sick during my pregnancy. So I tried Ozempic almost 3 years ago, and I was like bedridden. I was like vomiting, like, and then you have no energy. But other people take it, and they're all good. So
I know.
God bless them.
It drives me crazy because I try so hard to be thin.
Oprah is thinner than you. It's like, what's your thing now?
Right.
You got to find a new thing.
She took my thing.
Oprah robbed you.
And I was so hopeful when I heard that you said, "Oh, it made me sick." I went, "Oh, good."
Thank you, Howard.
Yes, of course, because I said, "Oh, everyone's going to get sick on it, and I'll be back to being the only one who's fit." And every day you read something new about how it prevents Alzheimer's. Gives you superpowers.
It's almost like a red flags, you know? Yeah.
Oh,
They're like, it makes you come harder. You're like, wait a minute.
There's got to be something wrong
Slow
with it.
down these. Yeah. The side effects are you have a better personality. I don't know. There's just no
Who
red
wants
flags.
that?
No,
good.
I tried it.
Okay, yeah. So obviously she's super funny, but there's so many people that have had great experiences and negative experiences. Just everybody out there, know that this is one of those fads that's going to go through those stages that we just explained, from scientific breakthrough initially to a mainstream popularity, to where everybody is getting on it and everybody's normalizing it, and then you're going to go to this public backlash on the back of people like Amy Schumer and the few others that have come out. It's gone from a lot of positivity, almost like this is the miracle drug, into this is making people sick and nauseous just in a short period of time. And that regulatory scrutiny is I think on the cusp here, and you're going to see it decline. You're going to see it replacement, and just know that in our lifetime, these 10-year cycles, you're going to see 6, 7, 8, 9 of these things. So look out for it and do what you can control, which is eat very well, sleep well, train hard, repeat that. Make sense, people? Trisha, we had another article coming up right after this. And this article is one that I thought we would both be really interested in. Chelsea, why don't you, I thought you did a great job on the last one. Why don't you go ahead and break this down? So, want to be successful, science says you really, really, really need a hobby. Like, you really need a hobby, people.
Yeah, so it kind of goes against what a lot of people think of, like if you're going to be successful, you need to be all in and all in on that one thing. But what this article talks about is that science is actually showing that when people have something outside of their job to kind of get their brain off of it, it allows for them to be more sustainable within their job, and it allows them to be more successful because they allow their brain to turn off from the things that they're trying to do in work or whatever it may be. So that breaks that down.
And we have a clip from Dr. Karen McFarland, and she is giving a TED Talk on the impact of hobbies on your career. Let's roll that clip.
Every time we let one of our hobbies sit dormant, we have rejected a part of ourselves, and not a trivial part. Even if it's something that doesn't provide a monetary income, its value is enormous. That's one of the best reasons to keep cultivating our hobbies. Without them, we aren't functioning as our best whole selves. When we instead prioritize them, we are able to approach our careers and other parts of our life in full force. The scientific evidence for this observation comes from a study published in 2020 in the Journal of Vocational Behavior. The researchers were curious about leisure activities and their effect on people's careers. Their primary result was this: above average time spent on leisure activities positively impacted people's careers. Now, there is a caveat. They found this to be true specifically for activities that were high in seriousness and different from a person's career. In their studies, they defined serious as activities that had goals, aspirations, and where there was some kind of risk involved, such as engaging in competitions or performances. And they discovered that by pulling from varied parts of our lives that have different skill sets or mindsets, we gain cross-pollination between our hobbies and careers.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, my mindset on this whole hobby thing has changed since I've had kids, for sure. I used to be, I mean, you've known me kind of, wait, when did we meet? We met prior to Cameron, right? It was probably, it had to be.
Yeah.
So you knew me not nearly as well as we know each other now,
Right.
Before kids to now. But before kids, I was the type of person that agreed with what she said off the rip, which was more is better, all in, all hard work, all the time. And I won't say that I regret that at all. No, I don't say I would regret that at all. During that time in my life, I think I was in that zone to just be all in. I didn't want anything to do with hobbies. I can't remember even wanting one. And then you have kids. There's this added layer of stress. There's an added layer of responsibility, this added layer of pressure to do well. And that's when I started needing like an outlet where it couldn't just be work, kids, sleep, repeat, work, kids, sleep, repeat. I needed something that was like scratching that competitive spirit. And I think business really did that early on. And not to sound like it's not harder competitive today, but it's a lot, when there's no members and no revenue, it's a lot harder and more competitive than when there's, hundreds of thousands of members. And so it's just a different zone for me. And maybe things have gotten a touch easier in terms of building the company and the company having its own identity and it being, having 6,000 or 7,000 people that are a part of it. It's not all on my shoulders anymore. There actually is room maybe to think about a hobby or two. But I used to think the hobbies were a waste of time and like kind of like only people that don't know what to do with their time go do hobbies. And now I don't think that way at all.
But would you consider fitness though a hobby? So like in your brain, I know you were building a business when you were before kids, you were all in. And so there's part of the business part isn't going to be your hobby, but the actual fitness part, because that's a hobby for most people. I actually turned my hobby into my career. So because
that's a good question and a good pushback. That is a good question. I think the answer is I've always thought about fitness as a job.
Okay.
Yeah, because like it was what I needed to do to go play baseball, which was my previous job. And if I didn't do that, like the chances of me actually, like with my level of talent, which wasn't terrible, but wasn't like the most talented, natural gifted player, I had to work hard. So it was always, I always perceived it to be part of my job, which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Because I show up and I do it every day, but it's also not a hobby. It's also more of a chore and a task and a.
But it feels like a job.
Feels like a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, I think so. My journey, I was member first, and so I had a previous 10 years of experience in PR and marketing, and I came to burn. Like that became my hobby almost, because I did at the time have kids.
Do you think that is what happens for a lot of members?
I think then that it became a trainer because I loved it so much that I was like, I want to impact more lives through this, and I don't know how else to do that. I mean, I know I wrote Devin an email basically begging him to offer me a job in PR at the time. That was 9 years ago, but hey, look at me now. So I was like,
shoot your shot.
I shot my shot, and I got my foot in the door as a trainer, and then I obviously just kept feeding my soul what I needed it to be. And for me, I guess it is a little different in the aspect of like, I'm focused, my job is marketing, and my job is that's where my brain lives. So I can a little bit decompartmentalize, right? Is that a word?
That's a good word. We're going to take it. We're going to put it in the dictionary as a word.
Compartmentalize.
Decompartmentalize.
You know what I'm trying to say, guys. When
I go
to camp, I put my member hat on. Like very rarely will I be wearing my like marketing hat in camp. There's sometimes when I'm like, oh, like that, I just saw someone crush that, like their PR or whatever, and I'm like, we got to capture that. But for the most part, I'm there for myself, and that's like my hobby. I also like to run. That's another hobby that I've kind of picked up. And through the article, it did say like you need to have goals. Like goal setting is very important for your hobby to actually make sense and for it to work for the whole point of the article, which is for you to be more successful in your career. And I think that makes a lot of sense for me, because if I can set a goal for myself outside of my job and I can go attain that goal, then I feel more confident, right? And then the confidence then trickles down to all aspects of my life. And that's what we talk about at Burn Boot Camp all the time, right? We want people to set goals in camp. And once they hit that goal, they get confidence. Devin, you're the one that coined, we don't sell fitness, we sell confidence. Because people leave us feeling more confident, and then they can go crush whatever it is, whether it's mom life, because they're a stay-at-home mom, that's so super important, or if it's a boardroom conversation that they need to get something passed, like cool. But like at the end of the day, we all are seeking more confidence. So however you can get more confidence, I am here for it.
So that's your take on a hobby is very interesting to me, because I guess I've only been inside of my own skin and only really looked at. I've never until this moment thought about fitness as a hobby, like for anybody. That's pretty crazy. Why didn't I not think about that before?
That's shocking.
And Devin, something in the article that kind of pushes back on that is it says, if you're looking for your hobby to have a positive effect on your success, the more serious your hobby is, the less it should be related to your work.
Ooh, okay, that's probably a good one. Yeah, I usually can kind of make those connections. Thanks Trish for giving me something to think about today. But that's so true. That's probably part of the pull to burn, is like so many people find them that it's got a goal, it's serious, it's got risk associated to it, and it's outside of like their normal everyday day to day. When I'm done, I immediately go like to the protocol and start thinking about how to make the next workout better for members. Yeah. So a hobby. So have you had, Trisha, hobbies that that do the opposite for you? Like you started to, because people might be in this situation right now, like, dude, I'm doing this hobby and it's not giving me confidence at all because like I'm not good at it yet. Because there's a lot of hobbies that people try to pick something up. You know, it's like, I tried to pick that up and it didn't really work. What you're really saying is it wasn't fun because you weren't very good at it.
Yeah.
So have you tried? Yeah. I have an example. Have you tried something that you failed at that you're like?
Yeah, mine's kind of embarrassing.
All right, good.
You know how many books I have in my like nightstand at home? I was like, I'm going to read books. I'm going to read every night for like at least 30 minutes. And if it's like I can't get into it. I fall asleep. I don't know what it is. I literally lights out. So I have to like, if I'm going to read a book, I listen to a book. So if I've ever told you I'm reading a book, I bought the audio version and I'm going on a walk or while I'm getting ready, I'm listening to the book.
You just bought the physical copy just to feel good about it, having it in your nightstand.
A little decor.
Yeah, a little memoir. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I still read the book. I just listened to it.
Yeah.
So that's my embarrassing hobby that I really tried hard to pick up. Because like, book clubs are all over the place. I'm like, I want to be one of those book readers. Nope, I'm not. I can't.
Do you think it's because it's too closely related to your job? Meaning, are you like, are you reading novels? Are you reading like self-help books? Are you reading fiction or nonfiction? I'm better
at self-help. I can read that all day long. it's like the storytelling. I'm not good at, and my husband would attest to this, my imagination is like not great. I don't know why. So if anything is like trying to get me to like outside of my normal day to day, I just don't see the benefit, or like I feel like it's a waste of time. And I know that that's a personal thing, and that is all in my head. But I think that that's what contributes to it. Is I don't know. I can't get down with it.
Yeah. Well, it might be that might be why, because it's like it's too close to like the self-help stuff is like too close to your day to day. That might be why there's a resistance to like picking up the book, because it's too close. Like for me, it's pickleball and sketching. Those are like, and pickleball is way more serious, and I play competitively, and I'm like trying to show up and kick ass when I play people. So that really has been something that has been an outlet for me, and it's also so time consuming. Not time consuming like golf, where you have like 5 hours and you just like time consuming, and that it's thought consuming, put it that way. It's the time that I am spending playing at an hour and a half. If you want to be good at that particular game, you cannot have, there's a big focus factor. You can't have like points off.
Yeah.
Because then I'll let like my doubles partner, who happens to be Bryce, our VP of HQ Gyms.
Yeah.
I'll let him sneak in and beat me in a couple games of singles, and because I'm, he'll say because he's better, I'll say because I wasn't focused, and it's because I was thinking about like something else, or maybe he's just better than me. Who knows?
Well, I guess going back to just to kind of reiterate, so I can't do fiction, but like I can do nonfiction because I know it's helping me reach a certain goal. To your point for pickleball, is it because it's to the whole point of the article, it's helping you reach a goal?
Yes, it's serious. Even though it's like so trivial, it matters to me because I didn't focus a lot on friendships in life, building the company for the first 10 years. I've got my like day ones, like my high school and college friends that I'm very fortunate to have that group, but I didn't meet anyone new outside of Burn around here. And, and then my kids started coming around, and like just your whole perspective starts opening up. And now like I want to know the kids' parents that they're hanging around and stuff like that. And, I want to know that I want to have a community of these pickleball players that, care about it, and they, maybe want to go to like a tournament together and like just think about something other than work for 80 to 100 hours every single week and not have time for anything else. But I'm also not demonizing the grind, because there was one point in time where I'm like, I don't want to do anything other than work. And, and if you're in a place where like, I wasn't saying necessarily that I was eating beans and rice, but I was in a place where I was folding anything that I had back into the business, and I was sacrificing so much personally that I couldn't mentally go take time off to go do something for an hour when I just put the last money that I had back into the business, and I could spend that hour going to recoup that investment. And at that time, I don't know, business was kind of like a hobby to me too. I don't know, maybe like disciplines of business, different businesses was a hobby, like learning about I didn't know anything about finance. I didn't know anything about legal or operations or franchising. Nothing, Trisha. I mean, like nothing. YouTube taught me everything that I know. And so that was kind of a hobby early on, was learning, I guess. But I think everybody needs a hobby. So take inventory, people. Do you need a hobby? Do you need one right now? What do you think?
No, I think you probably should think about
working out yours.
When you were talking about pickleball and you kept talking about why you're doing pickleball, and then you got to the root cause of why you're doing pickleball, which is you are seeking community and you're seeking like friendships, and this is an opportunity. So if your goal at the end of it, that maybe you didn't know going into it, was like you had this need for wanting more community in your life, and this was a way that you could accomplish that goal, and you really like playing pickleball. So I think if you're out there trying to figure out what could be your hobby, maybe start with like, what's a goal that you have in life? And then what could be something, because let me tell you right now, reading fiction books is not going to, I don't have a goal that that's going to help me. And so I think that that's why I fail every single time I pick one up. Is like, I'm just like, this is not for me. But maybe if you have a goal of like maybe writing one day, like I could see where that could help you, or, you know, increase your vocabulary, which is something that I think is all good for everybody. But I think that that's the work back for me, is from what I just heard from you, is figure out what that kind of goal is, what really is driving you. And then what can you do that's fun, that's outside of your day to day, that can get your mind off of, you know, maybe the stressors of life.
Yep, and so fitness is it's so crazy that we brought that up, that most people that are listening to this, actually, the gym has become that for them. And that is a good insight for me to have today. I hope you guys are learning something. I'm learning something here today in the podcast. We're going to article number 3. This one is hey, if you got triggers out there, if you're a trigger person, this one might get you going, get you fired up a little bit. I know I got Trisha all fired up. We're going to let her go in on this in a minute. We're going to let you guys listen to a clip. Does stress in babies and children cause ADHD? Very bold headline. First of all, let me just analyze this headline. Anything that says a single cause creates a single effect, so does stress cause ADHD? That automatically is absolutist and automatically is a red flag to me as I view the world, because ADHD and stress do not have an absolute 100% correlation in this article. Right off the bat, screams clickbait, clickbait, clickbait to me. But I want to explore things that I disagree with, and I hope, and let us know what you think about that, people, because I know you're at home right now, and some of these things you're like, you know, what are we talking about, babies and children? And I want to talk about things that we also might disagree with here in the podcast, because I think it's wise, if you're seeking wisdom, to understand both perspectives. That's what intelligence is. We talked about this, I believe it was last week on the podcast, about critical thinking. What is critical thinking? Well, critical thinking is being able to hold one person's perspective in this hand, your perspective in this hand, and then be able to see both of those perspectives and be able to add logic and data and facts and even subjective opinion to each one of these, and to be able to hold two opinions, two cases at the same time, and be able to make the arguments for both of them. Where we get in trouble as human beings is we try to take one side or the other, and if one side believes this and one side believes that, well, there's a little bit of truth in a lot of things. So, you know, is anything absolutely 100% the cause of anything else? And the answer is no right off the bat. So I got a little triggered by this, and we went into it. Chelsea, why don't you bring up the clip from the Diary of a CEO podcast? Erica Kamazar, clinical social worker and psychoanalyst. He's talking that stuff on this one.
Flash diary. ADHD.
Yeah, okay.
I don't feel like I don't even have to ask a question here, but just to set the stage, the reason why I'm so compelled by this is just this, I have to say it, the shocking rise in diagnosis and prescriptions over the last 10 years. Between 2000 and 2018, ADHD diagnoses in the UK rose approximately 20-fold.
Yes.
Among boys aged 10 to 16, diagnosis increased from 1% roughly to about 3.5% in 2018. And in men aged 18 to 29, there was a nearly 50-fold increase in ADHD prescriptions during the same period. And the same applies to the United States, where an estimated 15.5 million adults in the US have been diagnosed with ADHD. Approximately 1 in 9 US children have been diagnosed with ADHD at some point, with 10.5% having a current diagnosis. I don't know where ADHD was, but the conversation around it, the prescriptions, the diagnosis seemed to have really surged into culture in a really, really big way. What's going on?
So ADHD was one of the factors that drove me to write Being There, because I was seeing this huge uptick in ADHD diagnosis and children being medicated so early. Do you know what the fight or flight reaction is?
That's when the sympathetic nervous system starts to kick into action. And
yes, so well, it's basically our evolutionary response to predatorial threat. So if a saber-toothed tiger was chasing you, you either stood and fight, or you ran for your life, flight. So when our children are under stress, they go into fight or flight. So one of the first signs that a child is under stress that they cannot manage is when they become aggressive in school. They hit, they bite, they throw chairs, they have trouble, socially in daycare or preschool or even in school. Or they become distracted, which is the flight part of fight or flight. So what's happening is their nervous systems, the stress regulating part of their brain is getting turned on. So we say that the stress regulating part of their brain has to do with a little almond-shaped part of the brain called the amygdala. It's a very primitive part of the brain, very old part of the brain. And it regulates stress throughout our lives. It helps us to manage it. What we know is that part of the brain is supposed to remain offline for the first year to 3 years, which is why mothers wear babies on their bodies. It's why babies stay close to their mothers in the first 3 years, to keep the amygdala quiet and only incrementally expose children to stress and frustration that they can manage. So imagine taking small bites of it so you can digest it, right? And your mother's there to help you digest the stress. What we're doing now by separating mothers and babies, by putting babies into daycare with strangers, is by sleep training babies, all these weird things that we're doing to babies, is we're turning the amygdala on. We're making it active precociously, too early. What happens when the amygdala is activated too early is it becomes very active and very large very quickly. The problem is then it shrivels up and burns out also because it cannot manage that kind of stress so early. When it ceases to be functional, it ceases to be functional for a lifetime. And so it's very important to protect, what's the expression? The family jewels. These are the family jewels in the brain of a baby. This is the jewel, the amygdala. You want to keep the stress to an absolute minimum in the first year, which is why sleep training is dangerous.
Okay. Trisha.
I just can't.
Yeah. Okay. So let me give my take, and then you can give your take, and I'm gonna just let me think about where I want to start with this one. There's a lot to unpack here.
I really hope we don't disagree on this one, Devin.
I don't think we're going to disagree. I think we have slightly different angles that we're going to take, but we'll see here.
Okay.
So, all right. So here's the real question: is why are ADHD prescriptions up? That's the real question. And immediately she goes into parenting. She goes into all the triggers that Trisha, I know that get you kind of going is, keep your baby on you for the first 3 years of your life.
All the weird things we're doing to babies.
All the weird things we're doing to babies. Okay. So the question is, why is ADHD prescriptions up? And her response is because all the weird things we're doing to babies. Okay. So I've got a different take on the answer to the question, or the question, why are ADHD prescriptions up? Well, number one, because we've increased the customer base. Well, how have we done that? We've expanded the definition of what ADHD actually means. Wasn't it just ADD at one point? And now there's just ADHD. There's another variation of it, attention deficit disorder. Then it went to ADHD, right? Well,
I think they said in this podcast that they took out the D because it's not a disorder, but I don't know if that's her take on it or if I think that's something we should look up, because I do recall hearing that, and that was the first time I'd ever heard that, because I thought we did change it to ADHD.
Okay. So regardless of what we're calling this a diagnosis now, there's a large expanded definition to it. Okay, and then you have the thing about contemporary marketing, right? You have direct-to-consumer advertising, right? You have telehealth, the boom in telehealth companies. Yep. Now I can just call my doc, like a video call. I can video conference my doctor from anywhere. there's this huge financial boom inside of the pharmaceutical industries. There's societal pressure. There's a workplace pressure if your kids are misbehaving to control your kids. And then there's also, lastly, I think this is the most irrelevant one, but I think slightly relevant, is there's this shortage paradox to where the medicines for ADHD have had like a shortage, right? Like creating like a supply and demand issue. Like this, the less you have, the more people want it, kind of thing. You know, and when I sit back and I look at the question under the microscope here is, why is ADHD, why are those prescriptions higher? What's like, and we're not talking about the education system at all in that. I think that is a big, big miss on her part here in this article, or in this in her take on the Diary of a CEO podcast, because my two boys are absolutely wonderful kids, but they are also off the walls, right? And I have them in a school that I make sure that the school that I put them in has a lot of physical activity. So it's like PE every day, recess every day. You know, they're constantly doing stuff. I know, at least in Michigan, some public schools, especially in the winter, I mean, you're inside, sit down, be quiet, pay attention all day long. And as a kid, especially as a young boy, I mean, you want to go crazy. I mean, imagine your 5 or 7-year-old boy on the weekend. They don't want to sit still for more than a couple minutes, right? The only way to sit them still is to like put some screen in front of them. And so we're not giving kids the environment to go like get the energy out. We're breeding our future generations to stay and pay attention and listen. You're 7 years old. All you want to do is go run fast as you can in circles. That's the societal type workplace, school type pressure. But I just don't know how. Yeah, I'm sure there's some science and some facts, and I'm sure she means well, and she has like a very logical, data-driven approach behind what she's saying. But I'll also say that you can find facts that back up anything that you want to back up, and that there's 3 types of truth, that there's universal truth, personal truth, and political truth. And which type of truth is this, right? Like, why are there more ADHD prescriptions given out? Is it because profit matters in pharma? Is it because there's pressure on these companies to return quarter-over-quarter profits, so they need to increase the marketplace? So that in order to do that, they need to expand the definition. They need to do more marketing, more targeted advertising. Advertising works, people. It really works. There's a reason that there's billions and billions of dollars spent on these commercials that show you how good of a life that you can have and don't even address what the actual sickness or diagnosis is. I mean, these telehealth companies, the financial boom, there's so many reasons that I would put far beyond putting personal responsibility on a mother for not setting down her career aspirations and holding a baby on her skin to skin for 3 straight years. That seems pretty unpractical, and it seems maybe science-driven, maybe data-driven, but like, how useful is that in the world? How useful is it to say you need to do this for the first 3 years when I personally don't know a mom. I personally don't know a mom, and I know so many amazing moms. I don't personally know one that was able to spend 3 years on skin to skin every day, without sacrificing other things. So that's my take on it. I think it's mostly the position that we put kids in. Some kids have higher energy levels than others. Is there such thing as this diagnosis where you have too much energy and you can't focus and you can't pay attention? There's outliers and everything. So yeah, there's the chair throwers, and I've seen those type of kids, and maybe those kids do need to be on some medication. They do need some help. But at what point do you strategically open up the marketplace, message to kids specifically that just have normal run-of-the-mill energy, and then you say, hey kid, you're bouncing off the walls. You pulled your chair out from under your classmate today, so you're going to the nurse, and she thinks you need to go to see a doctor, and she thinks that you're too energetic and that you have ADHD, and she wants to get you diagnosed. So that's my take. Trisha.
My brain is honestly going so many different directions with this. I agree with you, Devin, that there are so many other variables that come into play with this. Sure, I'm a mom of 3. Would it make me so happy to be able to hold my child until they're 3? Like, and that sounds great, and I would love to do that for my kid, but like, that is not practical, to your point. I also had 2 kids, they're 18 months apart. I couldn't have done that with 2. Like, what happens with moms of multiple? Like, I just have questions on just that alone. And I also think that's a really strong statement that she made with someone that's like backed on research to say all of these crazy things that we're doing to our kids, which like we're told that we need to socialize our kids. So one study's telling me that I shouldn't put my kids in daycare or shouldn't, have a nanny or whatever because they need to be with me the whole time. But then if I do that, then another study's telling me that I'm screwing my kids up because they're not going to be able to socialize because I've kept them at home. So like as a mom, it's like this constant tug of war. And I think that that's what frustrates me the most is moms, dads, like parents in general, like we have so much to deal with on a daily basis. Like, why are we trying to make it more difficult for people? Like, if this is the facts that she wants to present, fine, like you are entitled to presenting that data because it is data and I love data. But then like, how can we use it to make people feel like better and not feel like they're gonna fail? Because that, when I was listening to that, I've basically set my kids up for failure. And then when you think about the question, I think all kids are different too. Like I think about the difference right now. I have a 10-year-old, I have an 8-year-old, and I have a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old's typical three-year-old, like teenager. We don't, he's still developing. But when I look at the difference between my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old's a lot more reserved. He's patient. He can like absorb information. My 8-year-old he's bouncing off the walls. It takes him a little bit longer to like focus. But so I think it's all about your approach with your kids. At the end of the day, I'm not going to go maybe medicate them right now because I can see very clearly it's just their personality styles, and they similar to the difference between me and my husband. We absorb things just differently. And so I don't think that that's right or wrong, but that also could be where maybe we're getting misguided information from other people's opinions, whoever they are, to your point, Devin, when they say your kid's bouncing off the walls, they might need medical help. It's like, okay, well, maybe they do down the road. That I'm not going to totally, cancel that out as an option if it's going to help him or her, whatever you have, a girl or a boy, down the road. But I just don't think that people's opinions cause more damage sometimes than good. And this article or this podcast in general, and I need to probably listen to the whole thing because I know it's only 5 minutes, but it was just frustrating to me that it was data, but also I think her opinion was heavily influenced what she was saying.
Yes, and she does have a child. I looked it up. She has a kid.
Well, that's good. That makes me feel a little better.
Karen, we just want you to be more practical. You can have all the data in the world that you want, and I know you have a child, and so, maybe we've like some practicality in there so that and honestly, I have nothing personally against anyone, but there's a lot of people in the scientific community, academic community that only think in those terms and they don't think in terms of like practicality. I actually had a doctor once, a general family practitioner doctor I went to just to like get, establish myself when I moved to this area, get a family physician. And, a couple years into the relationship, he said, "You know what, Devin, I'm so jealous of you." And I said, what do you mean? Like, why do you say that? He said, "What you are doing with Burn is what I've always wanted to do, as a physician. And which is to help people." And he goes, "Honestly, I'm not that happy doing what I'm doing because I'm catching people way too late." He's like, "I'm catching them, and I'm not catching them I'm catching them when their symptoms are too bad for me to do anything about it." And there's this practical sense of like the scientific community needing to say, "Okay, got the data, makes sense. Now, how do I actually apply this to somebody's life to make their life more wonderful?"
Right.
And this is where I think what doctor, my doc, I won't say his name, but this is what I think he meant, was like, hey, there's a little, I wish I knew how to apply what I know to people so that they actually want to listen to me and like want to come to me and want to, they want to know what I think because I actually have given them advice. They've went and used it. It's made their life better. So they come back for more. So anyhow, we'll get off that topic, but a hot topic, a sensitive topic, but we want to lean into these topics because they are things that we need to talk about. And Things that hopefully, as we give our perspective, that you will consider either developing your own perspective or consider the balance of all the perspectives that you hear. That's why we bring clinical social worker Erica Kamazar in. Thanks, Erica. We appreciate you. All right, so we're going to talk about the brand new mesocycle that is coming up in Burn Bootcamp. So we have our programming here at Burn. It's the best in the game, and it's always programmed out 1 year at a time. And then each one of those periods, okay, we call them mesocycles, okay, they're phases. These mesocycles have a goal. And the goal within the mesocycle is 2 to 3 human movement patterns. Okay, you've heard of human movement patterns before. Push, pull, squat, deadlift, lunge, hinge, gait, balance, agility. You've heard of these words before, the movement patterns. Within those movement patterns, there's 2 to 3 fundamental exercises. Okay, we call them the fundamental 24 here at Burn. And this next mesocycle coming up, everybody, will end on 4/26. But we're going to focus on 2 fundamental 24 movements, one-arm rows and alternating lunges. So legs and back. The rep count will be 10 reps for each arm and 10 reps on each leg for the lunges. We're going to program this 1 time per week from now until April 26th for 6 weeks so that you all can focus on getting better at these 2 specific movements. This is the difference between training and exercise or activity. It's these fundamental 24, these movement patterns. In this mesocycle number 3, it is one-arm rows, alternating lunges. We'll do them for 6 weeks. We want your 10 rep max to go up in weight over the 6 weeks. That's the difference. That's specific outcomes. That's training, not just exercise where we're showing up and working out with no plan. Make sense? Say yes? All right. Hopefully you're excited for that. I know the first 2 mesocycles have been amazing so far. Trisha, what have you loved so far about Burn Bootcamp mesocycles in the year 2025?
I love having a focus on the movements and really being intentional about the movements. I think I've said before on this podcast, and I've said it many times, is, it's if you go through the motions, you're not going to see the results, but if you can actually get intentional and really doing the exercise the right way, you're going to see those results. So I've heard nothing but good things from our members, and I know I'm loving it.
All right, me too. If you guys have any feedback at all on the podcast, on the training cycles at Burn, podcast at burnbootcamp.com, we're producer Chelsea, we got Jordan here, our podcast team behind the scenes, ready to help take you forward. That's our goal here. Keep on progressing. Okay, our next article is 5 life-changing lessons an entrepreneur learned from visiting the world's happiest country. The world's happiest country, which is Finland. Why is Finland the world's happiest country? Trisha, do you happen to know why Finland is the world's happiest country?
I mean, I know what the article says, but I don't know anything other than that, unless if that's what you're.
Okay, Chelsea, why don't you paraphrase this article for us?
Yeah, so obviously you said that this entrepreneur, she visited Finland for 48 hours, and she just kind of talks about some of the differences there compared to the United States and what she learned while she was there. So things like there's less time in the day, so it makes you more focused. They don't really have a big social media presence, so you don't have to chase those likes and follows, things like that are just a little bit different than what we see here in the U.S. that you could take into your own life.
So nothing like groundbreaking. They just don't have social media. No social media and lots of darkness. That kind of seems like the opposite of a happy country. I like social media. I think social media makes the world a better place if you use it appropriately. It's just like any other tool. It's like you can use a saw to cut your hand off or to build a house. I mean, it's just a tool.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset, yeah. So I GPT'd this real quick because I was interested in figuring out why Finland is the world's happiest country. It said strong social support and trust in government. High levels of trust in institutions because the institutions aren't like inside of their life trying to make decisions. The welfare, it's a strong welfare system that allows a strong safety net for their society. Finland has shorter work weeks, more paid leave, and a culture that values personal time. I'm sure that has a lot to do with happiness, which in the West, what we get a lot is happiness is synonymous with financial success.
Yep.
And gosh, I've been fortunate to become a financially successful person, as many go-getters on the podcast have been fortunate enough to do. Trisha, you as well. And there's a misconception for sure that money makes you happy. I know the most miserable people I know are the most wealthy. Mm-hmm. Like the happiest people I know probably make like 70 or 80 to like maybe 120 a year, where like you have enough to, do what you need to do and put some away and save and build a retirement. If you don't overspend, but you also don't have such a massive load of responsibility that like your weekends are completely eradicated at any moment if something were to go wrong. Yeah. So there's, if you are looking for like financial, there's a lot of studies on this, by the way, like financial success, like the more money that somebody makes, the higher the correlation to unhappiness there is, which I know exactly why, because there becomes a lot of responsibility when you have the responsibility to allocate money in a certain way, and which brings a lot of pressure and stress. And if you are a person that can't handle pressure and stress, pressure creates one of two things: diamonds or pancakes. And I think you get the metaphor. So, there's something to be said about, I think sometimes we brainwash people in American society to think that they need to go out and make like $1 million in a year. It's like, do you know how crazy stressful life is at that stage of the game? It's not. There's positives for sure. There's positives for sure. And if you said zero money or a lot of money, I'd pick a lot of money every time. But to me, success isn't correlated with money. Success is correlated with following my intuition and my heart and the desires that I have. And if that leads me toward creating things that add value to the world that then produce revenue or financial gain as a byproduct of that, and I'm doing good upon the world, then bring it on, and I'll take more of that. But if it's financial gain at the detriment to other people, I'm not interested. So Trisha, happiness, success, less interested in this article in terms of like Finland, but more interested in terms of your opinion on success and how it correlates to, we talk about the 8 buckets a lot, our 8 categories in the Burn lifestyle, and money is one of them. Like, yeah. There are categories, we call them out, like we call them exactly what they are. And money is a part of your life. One of our categories is money. A lot of people think money is the only category and that dominates their life, and it ultimately creates misery. So I just said a lot of words there just to give you something as a foundation to give some opinion on. Anything you want to agree or push back on my take on this article?
I mean, I think and I was like, I read this article and I was scanning. I'm like, man, what is it about Finland? But I think as I'm looking through these, what she was like pulled out of this, it's all about really your mindset, right? So how is your going into whatever job you are, however you're going to chase those dollars, like if you don't have the right mindset, if you have a negative mindset, you are not going to be happy. If you have a positive mindset, you'll be happy. So is life always going to be like rainbows and butterflies? No. And I'm not saying you have to have a positive mindset all the time, but if you can maintain some sort of positive outlook, like this last bullet says, sometimes plan B is better than plan A. Like in a perfect world, would you like plan A to be the best? Yeah. So, but if you have a positive mindset, you can shift that thought to plan B can also be just as great. So I think that that's what I'm getting from this, and that's something that it might sound really simple to most people, but I think that there's people out there that it's really hard for them to shift their mindset to thinking positively, where maybe they just feel like the world's against them, they hate their job, they don't like where they live, like X, Y, Z is kind of working against them. But if you can actually dig through and go to the root cause of why they're feeling that way, they just have a negative mindset. So if you can shift your thought process and play the game a little bit and remember why you got into it, and if you can't remember that, then it's just time to make those adjustments. I think that we've had in a different podcast, I think Devin really nicely walked through like a work back plan of how you can pull yourself out of a negative situation and put yourself in a positive one to where you can be happy, because life is short and we all just want to be happy.
I have a feeling they use a lot of saunas. I think that's one of the. I feel like my sauna at home, the Harvia heater, was made in Finland, and I'm pretty sure one of the reasons for the happiness is because their saunas are so supported, and there is some serious research and health benefits to saunas. So anyway, yeah, 2 million saunas in a country of 5.5 million people. So there's a 1 to 2.5 sauna ratio. Yeah.
What is it? I should know this, but like, is it always, what's the weather there? Like all the time, like year round?
I feel like it's pretty cold. It's in the north, Finland.
Because like, you know, the pictures in this article, it's like snow. I mean, that's also, if you're going to live there, like you have to just like, you pump yourself up every day. Like it's going to be a great day. We're only going to get 5 hours of sunlight and it's going to be cold, but you know what? We're going to go in the sauna and we're going to heat ourselves up and we're going to get some infrared and then we're going to have the best day ever.
Yeah, it's in Northern Europe, near Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Northern Europe, that whole region. Okay, so fun facts about sauna in Finland. Okay, I have 4 of them. Finland has an annual World Sauna Championship. I don't know how you compete. I don't know. I guess you stay in there as long as you can. I don't know.
Just sweating.
What is the World Sauna Championships, Chelsea? Many Finns enjoy, I have no idea the Finnish pronunciation, Loyly, loyally. That's not how you say it. The steam created when throwing water on hot stones, they enjoy that. Okay? That's like their thing. That's their go-to.
Okay.
Okay? Sauna etiquette is usually includes going in naked. You're not going to find many towels wrapped around
They're
the Finnish.
confident out in Finland.
Maybe naked saunas is the secret to health. And there is a Burger King sauna in Helsinki where you can eat a Whopper while sweating. So it's pretty ingrained into the culture. All right.
Devin, did it say that the championships are still going on?
It says the World Championships has a annual World Sauna Champion. Oh, discontinued in 2010.
Yeah, because somebody died.
No way.
Yeah, it says Russian in 2010 died while being
was
in
it
the
was
sauna.
was it about how long they could stay in the sauna? Was it a sauna competition? That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not doing that. I got 25 minutes at 186 degrees at my house. Do you have a sauna at your house?
No, I do.
Woo! I'm telling you, folks, if you want to be in an experience where you're creating a resilient mindset, there's 3 places, in my opinion, to do that. Number 1 is a demanding workout. There's nothing harder than a demanding workout. Like the burning of your muscles and the burning of your heart and lungs. Like there's nothing harder than that. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, clearly number 2, cold is much harder than hot.
Yeah.
So if you go in cold water, cold shower, or cold plunge, for more than a minute, none of this hopping in, hopping out stuff, and put the biological effects aside or the recovery benefits aside, potential recovery benefits aside here. I'm talking about mental resilience. If you want to become a person with a stronger mindset, meaning I'll do what my mind says to do, my mind doesn't get to negotiate with me, I tell my mind and my body what we're doing. Okay.
So yes,
3
Devin
is sauna. 3 is sauna. 180 degrees or higher for 10 minutes or more. If you want to be mentally resilient, put yourself voluntarily, people, in those 3 situations, you're going to build a mindset that is one of the strongest around in your circle of friends. I promise you that. Chelsea.
Yeah. So it's how long you can stay in it, but they were saying that like this guy was only in it for 6 minutes. So I think there was another underlying issues, but it's 110 degrees Celsius.
110. What's that converted into Fahrenheit? I can do that real quick. 110 Celsius into Fahrenheit. What is it? It's over 220. Woo! 230. 230.
No.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. No, 6 minutes and 230. Yeah, that's intense.
And people are getting burns and like in the hospital.
Oh yeah,
I'm good.
It's wild. I mean, I lived in Arizona for 21 years, so I feel like I lived in a sauna for the majority of my life. So maybe that's how I developed my resiliency.
I wear these in the sauna on accident sometimes. These 2 chains, and
they
sometimes
burn you?
sometimes I'll like meditate and I'll lean over and like put my hands on my head, and then the chains will like be floating in the air and they'll get super hot and they'll get dry. All the water will evaporate, and I'll lean back and they'll go and burn me sometimes. It doesn't hurt that bad, but it's just like it's scary. It's like you know, if you touch a hot pan or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Don't burn yourself, people. Take your jewelry off in the 185 degree plus saunas.
That's the headline of this.
That's the headline. Okay. So Josh Snyder, who is a franchise partner, a multi-unit franchise partner in South Dakota. Shout out to Josh. He's trainer FP. He's also a burn athlete, and he competed here at the Athlete Games Finals, which encourage your trainers to compete in the Athlete Games regionals and finals. The road to Charlotte begins now, and if you kind of nudge them, hey, Athlete Games, you can do Athlete Games this year, they'll sign up. All right, put some pressure on them, members. All right, I know it's a scary thing to commit to and to sign up for as a human, whether it's your version, a member version, the Level Up Games, or the trainer version, or Athlete Games. Josh's question can be relevant to any of you, all right, who choose to do so. His question is, how do you get 40 unbroken pull-ups? Ooh, 40. Okay, that's a lot. Trisha, what's your PR pull-ups?
12.
Mine's 32 lifetime, 26 in the last year. So the real question to your answer to your question, Josh, is I've never done 40 in a row, so I don't know. But I will tell you how, because I do know how. And I'm on my journey to do that as well. I want to get 50. That's my goal.
Wow.
50. And that's going to take some time. And here's what it's going to take. Here's how you go from basically being able to do 0 pull-ups to doing 40 unbroken, unassisted pull-ups. It's very, very easy. Okay? You do as many as you can in a row until failure, and on the very last rep, you hold yourself at the top of the bar, chin over bar, as long as you possibly can. That's it. Okay, you're going to hear trainers talk about, you got to do this band, and then this band, and then do this progression, and this amount of reps, and then add a weight, and then add a vest, and then take the vest away, and then add the dumbbell, and then put the dumbbell down, and then go up inside, then do 4, then do 10, then take a day off. Simple is sophisticated. Voltaire said that, okay? Here's what you're going to do. Do as many repetitions as you can in a row whenever you're not sore. And at the very last one, you're going to hold it up there as long as you can. And if you just do that, inevitably, over time, because your musculature is developed under tension, and the more time you spend under tension, the more the musculature will develop and get strong. So if I'm doing as many as I can, then holding as long as I can, what I'm doing is I'm maximally recruiting the muscle fiber needed, the muscle fiber that I need to recruit in order to hold in that contracted position and to gain the strength, okay? And then I want to do that as long as I can. I'm going to start shaking like this. I know that I'll be done because I'll physically go the opposite way on the bar. I won't voluntarily give up. And if you actually do that, if you listen to the words I just said, take them at textbook definition, like voluntarily, don't voluntarily give up, actually fail. If you do that, I promise you that it's only a matter of time, and the only way you could go wrong is if you overtrain. People say there's no such thing as overtraining. There's only undereating, undersleeping, under-recovering. You're full of it. Of course there's overtraining. Of course there's overtraining. I don't even need to explain why. Yes, you can undereat, and yes, you can undersleep, but I don't care how many sweet potatoes and egg whites you eat, you can overtrain, for sure. Just ask a football player. After they go play a football game on a Sunday, do they want to play a football game the next day? I don't care how much food they eat. It's not going to recover their body from being sore from that workout, being hit, and also running and sprinting and all the things. So, okay, Trisha, what is your goal for pull-ups? What is your inspiration for members out there to go after this goal? Because pull-ups is a hard thing. Mm-hmm. It's, as a trainer, it's my number one exercise out of those fundamental 24. There's number 1 and 2 are pull-up squats. Mm-hmm. And you can interchange those, one upper body, one lower body. Pull-up and squat. If you get efficient at both of those things, we're going to be pretty good overall. What's your inspiration for members out there on their pull-up PRs?
Well, my goal personally is to be able to consistently just bang out 10. Because I can say, and this kind of goes into my inspiration, is when I have been at the point when I could do that consistently, I was also in like the really good like strength physical shape. So I think that is a good indication of where you're at for your physical strength. It's your body weight, right? You're pulling it up. So I think that to me is like, man, what can I accomplish is how I kind of take it and I look at it. So yeah, to be able to just consistently bang out 10 pull-ups would be pretty sick. I haven't been able to do that. I think the most I've been able to do is like for like a month. And I don't know what it is. I don't know, Devin, because I like to hear what you said, because I probably learned from you on how to get my pull-up game better. That is what I do. Go until failure, and then I jump up on the bar, and then I'm making sure I'm squeezing my back muscles, and I'm engaging the right muscles, and I'm holding. And that's how I've started to build it. You also need to do them consistently, but I lose them. I feel like I'm using air quotes. I lose them fast, and some days I can go up there and I can get 8, and some days I go up there and I can only get 3. And I don't know if it's rhyme or reason, if it's hormones. I don't know why that's the case. Do you know why?
I do not know why. What I do know is
recovery, maybe.
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know why. But what I do know out of what you said is that when you replace a goal in which you can gain something, you have something that you are going after that can actually give you confidence when you accomplish it. So like a performance goal, rather than some weight loss goal.
Yep.
I mean, how many members during even your days as a trainer, how many members come into us and they sit down and they're like, I just want to lose weight. I just don't want to be fat anymore. Or they'll say something very demeaning to themselves. How many? Like, to me, it was probably 7 out of 10 would say something along those lines. So the vast majority. But it's really it's not a very empowering goal, is it?
No.
It's not a very empowering goal.
And usually there's some sort of, when you're sitting in those focus meetings, there's something mental too that, they're working through or they're struggling with. And so by being able to, that's where they start, is they have this weight loss goal. But then, in camp, that's why your trainers use what you say in focus meetings, and they have that one-to-one conversation with you because they know where you're at. They know how they can push you to not only break maybe that mental challenge that you're going through, but then kind of flip it to be a performance goal. And I think if you can hit your performance goal, the benefits of that are gonna also be, you're gonna see maybe not weight loss on the scale because you might gain muscle, which you might see the numbers go up, but like, who cares about the scale? It's all about, honestly, at the end of the day, it's how you feel. And if you start to feel better, then that's all that matters, right? So if you are gonna hit your performance goal, I'm gonna say 9 times out of 10, you're gonna feel better. And so then you're gonna feel better, and then mentally, you're gonna also have a better outlook on life. So that's kind of what I've seen, and I've seen that in myself too.
So what do you think, what blocks people from actually participating in fitness on a regular basis in the first place? And I think the key word is fun.
Yeah.
Like the key word is performance, because think about it this way. People are happy to exercise if they're playing rec soccer.
Yep.
They're happy to exercise if they're playing pickleball. They're happy to exercise if their friend wants to go on a walk. When you have a goal, when there's an activity that has a goal oriented to it, it takes something that might be like mundane and makes it fun, because now there's, like we were talking about earlier in the article, talking about how people that have hobbies could potentially be more successful professionally, is because they have the reason that one of the reasons that the article says this is true is because that the hobby has a success-oriented performance goal to it, right? So if I go out and I just play soccer just to kick the ball around, that's not as motivating as if I actually go out to like play in a league, to like play in a tournament, to like win. So yeah, so fun and play is a part of this equation, and oftentimes I don't think it is enough. It's one thing I struggle in my life a lot with, is having fun. One of the Klein family values that we have is play. It's lead, love, learn, grow, and play. And those 5 words are very important to us. And at first, a handful of years ago, it was only 4. And once I realized that, hey, there's a real value in life to having a playful, fun approach. It makes it doesn't take your seriousness away, but makes everything less serious simultaneously. The stakes aren't as high on things that it shouldn't be as high on. Like, you should have fun with your fitness, right? You should have fun at your work. You should have fun at your job. If you're in a job in which you can't have fun, or you can't be playful, or you can't joke around, or have like the freedom of comedy, I don't know if I could last in an environment like that. And I don't think as a human being you will either, because you'll have to rid fun of your life. And I think we all need that. You know, we grow up and we think we got to be so serious all the time. It's like, have a little. That's why what I admire about Elon Musk, say whatever you will about Elon Musk. He's a very popular guy, and anytime you're popular, you're going to be 50-50 split. What I admire about him is he has fun in the face of really serious things. And I think that goes a long way. And the people that do like him, I think they like him because of that. He could very easily be boring and dry and not have fun while you're doing it. So have fun while we're here on this planet. And a good way to do that while simultaneously being productive is to have performance goals wrapped into your hobby. We've got an article to finish up on before we get y'all out of here. That we're going to hear a clip from Dr. Hyman on this one. I'd really like him to be on this podcast, by the way, eventually. I think I've said that a few times. But until he gets here, I'm going to say, I think he's a very brilliant guy, and he's always kind of very practical for a doctor, too. So we're going to listen to him talk about one of the 5, quote, artificial ingredients that you should cut immediately because they cause anxiety, depression, and brain fog. Again, one of those, these 5 ingredients are the reason that you have, anxiety and depression and brain fog. Okay. No, not the case. Are these 5 things the most optimal things you could have for yourself? I don't know. I think as we go through here, there's some obvious artificial ingredients that you should cut just because we know a lot about them. And then, there's ones that I'm not so sure about. And so I'm not an expert here, nor do I pretend to be an expert. I'm just the personal trainer. I'm just your personal trainer, right? We're just here. Trisha's here as somebody who feels the brand, who represents the brand, who understands where we're trying to go and what movements we're trying to make as a business. We're not here as scientists, okay? We're not here as doctors. But what we're going to do right now is have a little debate between a couple people. The author of this article, we're going to go to the article first, and we're going to read it. And it's going to say 5 artificial ingredients you should cut immediately because they cause anxiety, depression, and brain fog, which we've covered, is a red flag when you see cause and effect in a headline. You probably know there's more to it than that. And then as soon as it says seed oils, oh gosh, you guys, if you are not in tune, everybody, with the seed oil controversy, welcome to the current state, the hottest debate in nutrition right now is seed oils. And this article is going to demonize them, and then I'm going to show you a clip that boosts them up, and then we're going to listen to a clip from Dr. Hyman on artificial ingredients, and there's just a lot here. Trisha and I are not here to tell you what to do. That is not our goal. Our goal is not to inform you how to think. Our goal here is to propose to you strategies, tactics, perspectives, worldviews, opinions that we have, that we hold, that we live our lives by, that you could consider if you're looking to move your life in a better direction. So let's go back to the article one more time. I'm going to list off these 5. So let's scroll down. Let's go right to the headlines of the 5 subtitles here. And it's going to say, number 1, seed oils. There's a huge debate. I'm just going to read this one out loud. I, as a caveat, do not agree with this, confirm nor deny. I'm just going to read it for those of you that are listening. Because this is really what I'm going to have Lane Norton come in and debate here in a moment. Here's one you may have heard about already, seed oils. The processing methods of these popular oils make them harmful to the brain. Very absolute comment. This is according to Nault. Quote, these industrial oils undergo extreme heat processing, chemical refining, and bleaching, leaving them with rancid and loaded with oxidized omega-6 fats that create systemic inflammation, including in the brain, she explains. Some studies indicate that consuming these oils in excess can impair neuronal communication, deplete brain protective omega-3s, and contribute to cognitive decline. When in doubt, it's best to reach for healthier fats like grass-fed butter, ghee, single-source organic extra virgin olive oil, organic cold-pressed coconut oil. You'll probably find your meals taste better this way if you do. All right, that's the only one I'm going to read, And then the rest of them, I'll just give the headline. So seed oils is number 1. You have Nult's take on that. Number 2 is gluten, or what is often called modern wheat. Number 3 is artificial sweeteners. Number 4 is artificial food dyes. Number 5 is monosodium glutamate, or MSG, or what's a common additive used to enhance the flavor. All right. So this article, in effect, is saying you should get rid of these things immediately because it causes depression, because it causes anxiety and brain fog. I'm not saying you shouldn't get rid of these things immediately. If you said, hey, Devin, here's a gun to your head, you're having somebody, you're not a scientist, you're having somebody eat these things or don't eat these things. You got to choose a side. There's a gun to your head. I'm going to go ahead and say don't eat these things, okay? Because we can find fruits and vegetables and food that comes to the earth. I think Dr. Hyman was the one that made the following quote famous. I think this is Dr. Hyman, if you want to Google this for me, Chelsea. I think he said, if it doesn't come from the earth, then you probably shouldn't eat it, or something along those lines. If it doesn't come from the earth, you probably shouldn't eat it. All right? Now, does that make things that don't come from the earth inherently depression-causing? No. So I think there's a middle ground. And, these articles are geared. This is why I like the article. You know why we like the articles? Because they have these clickbaity headlines that we like to bring up because they give us platforms to have talking points so we can have a conversation. So we're not saying that the articles that we put forth here are ones that we agree with. Oftentimes they're ones we disagree with because we want you to have a well-rounded perspective. So those 5 artificial ingredients, I'm not going to demonize any of them at this point in time. What I am going to say is that I will leave that up to the scientists, and I will take the information that is given to me at this point in time. If we go back to the list, I will give you my personal take on what I do eat and what I don't eat. Number 1, seed oils. I think is the most overhyped out of all of this. It's just the current debate stage. All right, so obviously they think this one's the most important, and then they're going to show the canola oil and the Wesson and the vegetable oil and all the things right there. Okay, so let's go down to number 2. So seed oils is probably the one I'm least concerned about. Gluten I'm least concerned about. Number 3, artificial sweeteners. Get a little bit pretty in moderation. I'm not very concerned about those at all. If we go down a little bit more, start to get artificial food dyes. Now, I know these food dyes, okay? There's beet powders and there's berry powders that can make our food the color we want it to. I struggle with the food dyes that color our shirt red, being a derivation of that being put in like Kool-Aid. So I know that's being taken care of at the national level. I think they banned Red 5, it was. Trisha, right? They already banned Red 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then monosodium glutamate, or MSG. I'm going to stay away from this, it's oftentimes found in meats and things like that. Seaweed flakes so you could find MSG in, it's like an excitotoxin, I think they call it. It overstimulates the neurons, they say. Anyways, so these 5 things, and they're all the big debatable things. So let's play the Layne Norton clip, because Layne Norton gives the opposite argument, right, to this. Go ahead and roll clip.
I've been asked to do this video for almost a year now. I haven't done it, mostly because I just don't want to deal with the idiocy that is undoubtedly going to be in the comments and be shared online. First off, let's give some background. What are seed oils? Well, they're oils that come from seeds. So you have canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, quite a few different oils. Why is this such a hot topic right now? Well, some people in the nutritional landscape, mostly of the carnivore and low-carb ilk, have been recently pushing the perils and horrible things that seed oils do. And if you notice, it went from carbs are the cause of all problems to sugar is the cause of all problems to refined sugar is the cause of all problems to, no, it's seed oils. This kind of follows the plethora of research over time demonstrating that it's not carbohydrates that are the problem, shown repeatedly. It's actually not sugar itself that's the problem, shown repeatedly. And even refined sugar in the human randomized control trials don't seem to make a big difference on disease and disease markers. When you're replacing other carbohydrate with sugar isocalorically, doesn't really make a difference. So I guess these folks ran out of stuff they could say about sugar and carbohydrates, and they were like, can't be calories. That we can't push that rhetoric. That's not sexy enough. That sounds like a little bit of personal responsibility if it's calories. And we don't like personal responsibility. So seed oils, that's it. Got to be seed oils. Can't be saturated fat because, carnivores, they love their fatty meats. So God forbid it be saturated fat. So when you look at the arguments against seed oils, and we're talking about mostly omega-6s in terms of the fatty acids like linoleic acid, what you see is that in epidemiology, the consumption of high amounts of these oils is associated with some negative health effects. When we talk about seed oils, it's a broad category, but essentially you're talking about mostly polyunsaturated fats and omega-6 fatty acids. When we look at this category, we have to look at in vitro or in mechanistic studies in animals, when they give high amounts of these and subject them to oxidation, because since it has a double bond, since these unsaturated fats have double bonds, they can be oxidized, we can see some negative effects on a cellular level. We can see negative effects in animals when they give high amounts of them. And so they've kind of taken this together and said, okay, seed oils are toxic. And then they do a bunch of big scaremongering about how these things are produced. It's produced the same way as motor oil. Oh! I don't care about any of that. What I care about is what do the human randomized control trials say? Why human randomized control trials? Well, because epidemiology is problematic because oils are the biggest source of increased calories in the diet over the last few decades. So they're not innocuous because those oils are contributing to energy toxicity, overeating, obesity, because people tend to overconsume them. If we want to examine, are they uniquely harmful, we have to look at what happens when we take, for example, saturated fat and we substitute polyunsaturated fats in a 1-to-1 ratio, or omega-6 fats in a 1-to-1 ratio. So let's talk about the human randomized control trials. Human randomized control trials.
That's his thing.
Shall not pass. Let's look at, first of all, inflammation, because a lot of people say, well, these double bonds can get oxidized.
That's good.
That's going to cause.
So this is Lane Norton and BioLane on Instagram. And listen, this is the nutritional conversation that we're going to bring to you on the podcast as we sit here and have focus meetings with our members. We aren't the scientists, we aren't the PhDs, we aren't the nutritionists. What we're doing is we are taking in the information that we can find. We are critically thinking about the advice that we want to recommend to you, and we're holding one opinion in one hand about seed oils and one opinion in the other hand, and then we're making the conscious the decision that we believe is going to benefit you the most, that's going to be the safest long-term decision for you. And so seed oils become I love what Lane Norton said just about the cause of weight gain and obesity rising because of these external circumstances, starting with carbohydrates and then the sugars and then the refined sugars. It's almost like there's this pathology of people scapegoating so that then they don't have to take personal responsibility for the energy toxicity, is the way that he put it, or the overconsumption of calories. And I agree with Lane that the overconsumption of calories is the fundamental issue, and it's not seed oils or carbohydrates or sugars, all of these things that are demonized today and that could be bad for you. And that have a right to be demonized when they're in high concentrated amounts, because like in the mice in the in vitro study that he mentioned, the mechanistic study on animals, I think that's how you, in vitro, is that what it's called? Is that what he said? How do you say that again, Chelsea? The mechanistic study on animals in vitro? Is that what he said? I think that's a drug. In vitro. I feel like that's a drug. I forgot what he said. This is the first time I've ever heard that term. But when they did that study on animals, he said that they had high amounts of seed oil in them, and it was like hyper high amounts. And then, yeah, of course, then you can look at that and say, oh, I put hyper high amounts and it's going to create toxicity. But anything in a hyper high amount would create toxicity. There's such thing as water toxicity, where you give somebody too much water and they die from having too much water. There's cases of this. So seed oils being demonized, it seems to be a pattern. Trisha, your thoughts on this? Energy toxicity, personal responsibility versus, yeah, go ahead.
Do you think people are just looking for an excuse?
Looking
for a reason to why they maybe look the way they do or feel the way they do? It's not because they don't have the foundational elements, right? Let's not talk about how much water you've had. Let's not talk about your protein intake. Let's not talk about the calorie intake that you have on a consistent basis. It must be because you ate seed oil or had refined sugar in your diet. I think that's where I get tripped up, and I love people like Lane Norton. I follow him. I like when he's realistic, but he backs it up by data, because I feel like my gut always leans to be realistic. I don't fall into these traps necessarily of the drama behind it all, but I don't always have the data to support why. And he beautifully, I think, explained that using data. What is your thoughts on do you think that's why?
I think that, and I'll always go back to this, I think absolute arguments about anything are dangerous.
Yeah.
It's always a mix. It's never this or that. It's always a trade-off. For example, if I have one Diet Coke, should I feel bad about that? Should I feel guilty about that? No, you should not. If you have, there's a member that I met one time, and we met twice. The first time I met her, she came up to me, as many people do when I'm at a gym, and they are happy that I'm there, and they're happy that I created burns, so they'll be able to tell me their story. And sometimes there's a lot of people, and we have a limited amount of time, so they get 1 minute, 2 minutes maybe to tell me their story. And she came up to me, and she told me a story about how she was drinking 40 Mountain Dews, guess what? A day. What? 40 a day. And her body, at the time I met her, looked like it. Yeah. She was overweight, okay? She had looked like, she was like, this is all I do. I just drink one after another, after another, after another. It's it was a bad habit, yeah. Okay? That is too much artificial sweetener. That is too much carbonation. It's bad for bone density. That's just too much of one substance, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, she cut down to 3 a day in the next time that I saw her and dropped 45 pounds.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I'm sure.
Energy toxicity. It wasn't because of the artificial sweetener.
No.
That's not why she gained weight. It was because there was too much energy in the body.
Right.
Okay?
And just for the people, when you say energy toxicity, that's calories.
Too much calories.
Yeah,
there's too many calories in the body. You have your body requires a certain amount of energy to be able to function at an optimal state. If you put 24 donuts in your body at one time, you're gonna feel like you're a rock. There's a big rock in your stomach, and it's gonna suck all of the energy out of your body to then metabolize this rock of sugar that's sitting in your body. And so wrapping this up. Anything on the five artificial ingredients you should cut immediately because they can cause anxiety, depression, and brain fog. Experts say if you are consuming all 5 of these things or any of these 5 things at a high level, I would consider cutting it out completely. If you're consuming these things on a moderate to light basis, which I would say is maybe once to twice a month, that's the difference. So I do want people to realize that. I'm not also going to say, there's a personal responsibility for you being able to say, I can control the consumption of these things, because if not, you're going to, you have to take the personal responsibility to say, hey, it's not that I can just do this because Devin and Trisha said on the podcast that, it's not terrible to have some of these things in your diet. And I'm not saying that. So I'm giving you 1 or 2 times a month for alcohol, 1 or 2 times a month to have those sodas, 1 or 2 times a month to overeat the donuts, 1 or 2. Just put that in perspective, okay? It's not once every other day. That's still too high of a frequency.
I'm breaking that because I drink a diet soda once a day, or maybe twice a day, probably twice a day. So
Yeah.
I think that just for the people out there, it's okay if it's not just once a month.
Yeah, no, it's not. It is, but here's the reality. The closer that you go to everyday frequency, the more you're going to be at harm.
Yeah.
Smoking doesn't hurt you one time if you do it once a day, but if you smoke every day for 40 years, caffeine's the same way. If you take too much caffeine, I know, Trisha, that I'm coming at you right now, because Trisha's only vice in this world is diet soda with caffeine in it. But listen, it's the reality, right? But what else are you putting in your body? Where's the trade-off, right? Are you consuming leafy greens every day? What's your water intake? There's other variables, right? If I would trust me, you're like one of my homies, dog. If you're drinking too much soda and not enough water, I'd be like, Trisha, come on, cut that out, right? But you're not, and you do all the other things around it. So if the one thing that you do that's unhealthy for you, and you know that's unhealthy, is have a diet soda on it.
I am aware.
That's okay. Listen, people, a little artificial sweetener is not going to hurt you, okay? It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to. And the reason I tend to be on the side of Dr. Lane Norton on this is because of the human randomized control trials, and because that's where the evidence lies. And that's our take on it. It's such a boring take, I feel like, but personal responsibility is a boring take.
Yeah.
Hey, you need to take responsibility for your life, and a little bit of some things is not bad for you. Too much of anything is bad for you, no matter what it is. You can be energy toxic with chicken breast. Like, you could eat too much chicken breast. You could eat 10,500 calories of chicken breast every day, and you're going to put your kidneys under stress because you're having to metabolize all that protein.
Yep.
All right, guys.
I want one before you wrap up. I did look up the red dye because I just wanted to make sure we were giving people the right information. It was red dye number 3, Devin, not number 5, just to clear that up.
Okay, it's banned. They're starting a train of banning these things. I feel like we made a prediction that more and more and more of these food dyes will get banned over time. So, in closing remarks, thank you all so much for listening to the episode today. Please podcast at burnbootcamp.com if you have. If you'd like to ask a question and be a part of that segment of the show. And please go to Apple right now. Go to Apple right now. Leave a review. That's actually all I want you to do. I don't want you to email Chelsea at podcast@burnbootcamp.com. I want you to go right to Apple. Leave a review on the episode today. Hopefully you like the topics that we're bringing. What topics would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? We're going to talk about everything under the sun that has to do with your health, your fitness, and your happiness on this journey. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for listening. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.